So for my lesson, that is all about gamification. I included my kind of idea or lesson plan, specifically involving quizzes. So this is kind of just my outline overview of what it would look like, the different types of things that it would include, and then a few references for specific lesson. So that is the actual lesson plan, I guess you would say. And then the actual item of quizzes is this particular lesson. And so this lesson is all over equations. So as an overview, to kind of look at what it would look like, the questions start with two-step equations, which is very basic, more of a review. And then as you continue on, there are 20 questions. So as you continue on, the questions do get much harder and more challenging for students. So this question is, what's the first step? First step, they should subtract 11 from both sides. If they get it right, you notice that it turned green and they get points. So they're working on getting the most points. That could also be another part of a challenge, as to whoever gets the most points gets the reward or gets a reward. And then for this one, it would be divide both sides by -3 as the second step. And then so that was kind of starting on with what are the first steps. Now it's actually having them solve the problem. I think it's that. Okay, so if they did get it wrong, they get this little red and it shows that they missed it, which in this particular set of questions, I do have where they can go back and earn points back. They don't get full credit, but they are able to kind of like redemption questions. Then it goes into so we're working on questions harder than our two-step equations. These are going to be your combining like terms and then moving them to the other side. I do not remember what these answers are, I'm not going to lie. But it does eventually get harder. So if I wanted to close out of this or go and look at the actual questions. So my actual questions, as you can see, this was the first one we looked at. This is the second one, the third one, and then so forth. So as it continues on, we start working with combining, and then we go into the distributive property, which is a step further into solving multi-step equations. That's more challenging, so I gave them a few questions. Then we do combining like terms and distributive property. Then they would go into word problems, which again is always more challenging. And then I finished up the lesson with an error analysis. So the first, there's like 3 or 4 word problems, and then the very end of it is solve the problem, but what error is there? So obviously there is an error, and they have to tell me what it went wrong. And then the very last question, to just challenge them all together, is they have to realize that just because it says there could be an error doesn't necessarily mean there is one. So they've got to know that, hey, they can, even though there's an error or it says that there could be an error, occasionally, they did solve it correctly, and they have to know from that. So not only is there an error analysis, it's also error analysis with some being correct, which when we look at the levels of learning, having a student analyze something is one of the hardest things for them to do. So students being able to do that, especially on equations, definitely challenges them. So this would be my item or my tool that I incorporated gamifications with.